Hello and welcome to another episode of Movie Battleground. Do not change your channel, you wonderful people. It is I, the virtuoso Will Cohen, filling in for Aaron Connole again. I know what you're all thinking. Oh no, why him again? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because Aaron Connole is in this match. He is going up against Chad the Ripper Webb tonight in a debate that is sure to be very, very entertaining. Without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce them first. With a record of 4 wins, 3 defeats, and 1 knockout, we have Aaron, A.A. Ron Connole.
How's it going?
Aaron, how are you feeling going into this? And I know what, and how do you feel that I'm are you asking if I'm an adequate enough judge, enough host to be here tonight?
Well, I produced the show, so if you were adequate enough, we would have had that problem dealt with long ago. So
Fair.
You're good. Don't worry. You're good, buddy. You're doing great. You're doing great. No, I'm happy to be here, man. It's fun to be back. Last year, like basically the entire time that we've run the show, I've taken an attitude when it comes to playing, which is I don't want to win. And I think that was a very stupid attitude because I ended up getting a title shot anyways. I didn't win, for what it's worth. I did not win, clearly. But I'm kind of switching up my approach now, which is I think that I've more than proven that I am good enough to hang with the best in the league. So I'm just going to play like I can be one, and win or lose at the end of the day, I still don't care because I still don't want the title. That part's not changing. I'm just not going to constantly play with this like air of self-deprecation because at the end of the day, I've always had that like, oh, I don't care, but then I clearly play like I care because I come prepared and I give my best for the show that I put a lot into in every other way. So, in playing Chad, I feel like there's no air of facetiousness. I produce the show. I pick my opponents. I never want to pick somebody, if it can be helped, who is ranked below me, because on paper, that would just seem like I'm trying to give myself an easy match. And of everybody who is on the roster, first off, Chad's a great guy. I'm happy to play him. He's a great debater. But we're also in a similar kind of playing field here. We both made it to a title match against Henry. We lost. And then the immediate next match we played, we also lost, and that was the end of our seasons. So coming back into this, we're two people who tried to play for the title, didn't get it, and haven't won since. So I figured it made sense for us to play based on the trajectory.
Absolutely. And as always, do not self-deprecate. That's my jam, and I'm copywriting that shit. So let's go ahead and move you over to the back, and let's go ahead and bring on his competitor tonight, who is, with a record of 6 wins and 3 defeats, Chad, the Ripper Webb. Chad, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I think you're the only one that still calls me Ripper because you know of my high Buffy love. But yeah,
Do you have another nickname that I'm not aware of?
And I've been called many things, but I actually
We're
love
not going to go there
because I'm hoping I'm hoping that I can actually prove to be at the Ripper level. So we'll see about that.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, after beating me very handily with as much alcohol as you had in your system, I'm going to go ahead and say that yes, you definitely are at the Ripper level, even when Ripper is ripped. So, uh, Aaron talked about how he has this air of facetiousness. What kind of airs are you bringing to the match tonight?
I don't know. I mean, these questions you wrote are very interesting. They're kind of these ones are very like open ended. It feels like it was hard to both not study but prep for it because it's like it's not about watching like a ton of movies like I'm normally used to with debate. It's about other things a lot of the times, or movies that I've already seen. So, I'm going in this with maybe a little bit less preparation than I normally come with. Also because I've just been kind of out of the game for a little bit, so I'm interested to come into this with maybe a different approach and just see how it goes. Also very excited to face Aaron because the dude, he'll be all nonchalant about it, but he's very smart, very good, and I'm just excited to see us ping off each other because one of us is gonna come out on top, and I just hope it's me today. We'll see. Maybe Jay rattled me that much, but maybe not.
All right. Well, good luck to you, my friend,
Thank you.
and good luck to the audience to see if I stammer throughout this entire match. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first question. Or by the way, we're going to go over the rules first. Battlegrounds is
I'll
the
give
best
you the
of
full 22. There you go.
uh, Battlegrounds is the best of 5 rounds. The first player to 3 points wins the match. If 3 points in a row are obtained by our player, that is a win by a knockout. Each round is worth 1 point, of course. A tie after round 4 activates round 5, which is the blind round, where the player is given a prompt and they go and they have to choose something at random, and they have to okay, voice inside my head. Okay. Regulation, the regulations. So stage 1 is a 60-second open debate. Stage 2 is the solo pitch, where you get to describe a little bit more in detail the choice, and then you have the 4-minute open debate. The players are going to try not to talk to each other. It's probably going to happen. Let's move on. And stage 4 is the closer, which is another 60 seconds. Players, are you ready?
Sure.
I want to start by addressing 2 apologies. The first is not because the questions are bad, but I always like to address an apology to my opponent because everybody writes differently to me. So this means you're getting a very weird experience with the questions playing me. And the second is I'm still recovering from COVID and then a follow-up chest infection. So to the audience at home, the sounds that come out of my mouth may not always be as pleasant as whatever ASMR shit that I was just doing a moment ago. So I do apologize if I stop speaking randomly just to cough.
Same, actually. So
okay, perfect. So we're going to be in sync. This is perfect.
And I would apologize. and I would apologize for the weird questions. But you know me, I bring the chaos. Let's go into round 1, shall we? So Disney's had a weird year, haven't they? They, every single time they think they're at the top of their game with films like Encanto winning, especially with Encanto winning 3 Grammys. But what happened before those 3 Grammy wins? Strange World happened. They don't want to talk about it, and we're not going to talk about it here because our players aren't talking about it for sure. Let's jump right into this chaotic question, which is question 1. What Disney animated film that never got a sequel most deserves one? And I do not have it in my notes who is going first in this. I believe
Me.
Chad is going
Chad is going to be up first.
On 1 and 3, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Here's the third apology I'll throw out. Nobody give this guy shit. I don't give any of these people training. They are doing it by wing every single time they step in here, and I'm sure it's a nightmare for all of them. You're welcome. Well, you're doing a great job.
Especially since, as my debate style, I don't take notes. Anyway. All right. So, Chad, are you ready for your 60-second opener?
Yes.
Aaron, are you ready to receive his 60-second opener?
Like Kermit from that Muppet round I debated last year.
Well, let's hop right into the red room, shall we, Chad? The time starts when you begin.
Well, this question is actually pretty hard because even though there's only been a couple official sequels, many Disney animated films have gotten sequels, but of the straight-to-DVD variety. However, looking through the slate of the other films that haven't gotten them yet, there's one glaring example of a film that is good. I don't think it's great, and it deserves some better representation. I picked The Princess and the Frog from 2009. It's pretty shameful that it took Disney just over 70 years to finally give us a black Disney princess, to give us somebody little kids could look up to that looks like them and sees themselves represented on the screen. What did they do with it, though? Most of Tiana's screen performance is with her as a green frog. I know there's a whole story to it, but it just feels like a weird choice to cover up the blackness of your first and only black Disney princess. Let's make a phenomenal sequel to The Princess and the Frog with no frogs and all Tiana, just as she is, using that brilliant New Orleans backdrop with its music, food, and culture. It deserves it. Let's call it Tiana's Palace, please, and thank you.
And time. All right, we have Princess and the Frog entering the Rainbow Room. Aaron, time starts when you begin.
Okay, well, this just became a balancing act I didn't expect. Okay. All right. So the choice that I went with for this question is Big Hero 6. So the basic reasons that I went with it, and I'll get into it more a little later, is that Big Hero 6 makes sense for a sequel because it leaves itself open for exploration. It leaves itself open actively to be continued. And we've had like pseudo half sequels, but we've never really gotten a full sequel. I'm going to do something that we don't normally do in the opening minute, and I'm going to go after his film because I have a pitch I want to give in the 2 minutes. If your concept for The Princess and the Frog sequel, I understand where you're coming from completely in terms of representation, but I would rather just see an original told story with a black lead. The Princess and the Frog as a story comes to a proper conclusion at the end of its story, and opening that back up would ruin the endings for multiple of the characters within the story. So I don't think it actually makes sense to make a sequel.
Time. All right. So this is the match that I don't think anyone would have called Princess and the Frog versus Big Hero 6. Already things have gotten interesting. Chad, your 2-minute expansion starts when you start talking.
Right. So, going off of the point that Aaron just made, the thing that I think would make this an actual perfect sequel is to continue Tiana's story as she finally gets her restaurant at the end of the movie. That's the whole like thing that we wanted to see was Tiana getting her restaurant, and as soon as she gets it, the movie ends basically. I want to see her vision of becoming that chef that she really wanted to be when her dad was teaching her how to cook and do all this great stuff. And seeing her being kind of a genius a little bit in the first movie of being a chef. I think they could expand that really well, especially since right now is the perfect time to make this kind of movie because a lot of these like chef inspired stories are popular. You have the menu, you have the bear. Even back in Ratatouille days, you have stuff like that did animated, and it's a classic. Everybody loves that movie. If you continue the story with her, then you can actually have her, be represented in full as herself instead of being the whole frog. And that was my big problem with that first movie. I really wanted to like that one a lot, but then I was very disappointed when they kind of just like took her full self away and just like turned her into a frog. And I felt like that whole like princess arc just like really wasn't needed. And I'm like, if this is going to be your like only black princess, give her some more screen time, give her some more things to do, another sequel to flesh her character out and give us that great Tiana that we wanted to see from the very beginning, the thing that we were promised. And if you go, you can have like so many great things happen in this to see her have so many challenges, but bring us back to that setting too, with all the great music and culture of New Orleans.
And time. All right. So while we all reel from the fact that Chad just brought up the menu in a Disney question, Aaron, time starts when you begin.
Okay, I'm not going to deliver the full pitch because I think I need to fight back against this more. I completely stand by your point that Disney has, in terms of representation, has underserved delivering black character leads in their films. But I don't think, especially when the question is worded as which one deserves a sequel, I think just telling a new story with a black lead character would be better than making a sequel to The Princess and the Frog. First off, in terms of deserves, The Princess and the Frog is the thing that single-handedly killed 2D animation at Disney. It grossed an estimated $25 million for the company, and that profit, when compared to the movies that followed it in 3D, is the reason that Disney never went back to 2D animation. For a comparison, Big Hero 6 grossed $165 million for the company in terms of, and that's pure profit if you're using estimated math. So 3D just makes more money. There's no reason that Princess and the Frog has actually earned a right to go for a sequel. And then secondly, again, as I said, making an original story could serve the purpose you're trying to get at better than making a sequel to The Princess and the Frog. Making a sequel to The Princess and the Frog just sort of serves to kind of muck up the ending of that story, because the whole point of that story is the journey of their characters. Yes, you don't physically see her as a black woman throughout the film, but her character goes through growths that she needed to go through in order to become a more whole person and not just be focused on, I need a business, I need a business, I need a business. And she actually kind of learned to stop and smell the roses in her life. And I feel like there's no way we can make a sequel that we wouldn't have to double back on that in order to add more development. Just making a sequel in which you're watching her go through her daily life, I don't think there's anything in that would be worthy of making a sequel. Whereas, I guess at this point I'm negating the pitch, but with Big Hero 6, it's a superhero film. Superhero films have so much room that you can work with and run with in order to make a big story. And this movie is filled with characters that never got complete arcs. So there is something to go back to.
Time. All right. Competitors, put your bike guards in and put your gloves on. It is time for the open debate. Again, try not to talk over each other. We know it's going to happen. Just try to minimize it the best you can. Timer starts when someone starts talking.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in just real quick here. I'm going to jump in also and add the fact that with The Princess and the Frog, and again, the whole crux of your argument just seems to be that the first movie didn't serve the purpose, didn't really fulfill Disney making a film with a black lead, and so making a sequel could better fulfill having that be something that's in existence. The movie is directed by two of the most legendary directors in Disney animation history, and John Musker and Ron Clements. Both of them have since retired out of the company. I wouldn't want to make a sequel to a story that they originally envisioned without them involved, considering the last time they tried doing that, we got something like the Aladdin sequels. And sure, those were direct to DVD, but even still, I wouldn't want someone touching a story that they helped create and envisioned without them being involved. And I'd say the same for anything that they made. That's why I don't think there should be a Treasure Planet sequel or a Moana sequel or another proper Aladdin sequel. I just don't think you do that without them being there. Again, based on the way you're phrasing your argument, to meet the thing of giving people another story with a black lead from a Disney animated film, I think going with an original character is a better choice.
I don't think going with the original character is the better choice because, we have a great character in Tiana, and she wasn't actually explored to the lengths that she could be explored, because this is a great character that wants to run her own restaurant, and we never actually get to fully see her do that. We get to see her like get it, but it would be so fantastic to see her come into her own and actually learn to run this restaurant. And the thing that I love about The Princess and the Frog that would continue into a great sequel is that it has such great music and culture, and they have a lot of films that have done and shows that have done other things about chef culture and stuff, but we haven't gotten that great one about southern New Orleans style with the jazzy type of music and all that stuff. I think that would be an incredible sequel that would explore that character more. And with your movie going into a sequel, I don't think is needed, because I think yours actually ends perfectly. Yes, I know that there is a cliffhanger at the end, but that's also kind of seems to serve more as a Stan Lee joke. And then also a lot of those arcs and all of those characters were served in a show that they did that no one
But
really
but
talks about or
for
cares about or
But
watch.
for Big Hero 6 and what it is and the quality of animation that's in that film and the action scenes they were able to produce, doing a 2D animated show on Disney is nowhere near making an actual sequel. And those Baymax shorts on Disney Plus certainly don't fucking cut it. At the end of the day, superheroes are the thing that is front and center in the world. And Big Hero 6 gave us a team of characters that were likable, that you could support, that you could root for. And the fact that Big Hero 6, in terms of pure profit, what it earned for the company, earned more than Wreck-It Ralph. And the fact that they haven't gone back into that, tapped into that success, and given it the proper blockbuster sequel it deserves. And again, that's the thing
I
is deserves. The Princess
I
and the
understand that it's okay.
so the thing with the Princess and the Frog is, and I mean this genuinely because you're pitching like an art house film. Nobody wants a Disney animated film about a woman
I'm
running a
pitching
kitchen.
something that's kind of like Ratatouille, but just a little bit different with Tiana and her whole culinary journey. And
But it's not because with
and
Ratatouille,
we're
it's
getting
about
a
the
lot of really
personal
great like
with
fantastic films that are more art style. Like
but where's
Encanto was kind of like that
but
with a lot
that's
of
the
like
thing is
great feeling and
what is
emotion.
your actual story? Because all of her character growth was done in the first one. In Ratatouille, it's not about the actual
There's
cooking.
a
It's
lot
about
of
helping
character
Remy
growth
and
that
Weenie
we
grow
can
as
see her
people through working
experiencing her
together.
own journey. That's what a story is developing her character
But she
in this
developed
new
her
life that
character.
she
The whole
Time. Okay, gentlemen, back to your corners. Chad, your 60-second closer starts when you start talking.
I understand Aaron's coming out talking about how Big Hero 6 would be great because it's a superhero film, so and it made a lot of money. Like those are his big points, saying you can explore the characters. They already did that in the show. We're experiencing a lot of Marvel fatigue as it is. Right now, we don't need just another one to add to it, another, Disney Plus thing or, whatever, that they might even just drop it on Disney Plus. Like, who cares? Like, it's not something that we want to see because if we did, they probably would have made that by now. I guess you could say that about any sequel that has been made, but that's the thing is like Big Hero 6 ended on a high note. It could only really go down, but The Princess and the Frog, it had a lot of really great stuff in its setting and what it was building in that whole birth of like a society. But really, Tiana wasn't served. Tiana could have so much more growth experiencing this whole story, coming into her own as a chef. An original story is not that interesting.
Okay, time. All right, Aaron, your 60 seconds starts when you start talking.
Okay, well, first things first, if either of our projects is going to Disney Plus, it's certainly going to be yours because yours wouldn't make money if it went to theaters. And that is a real thing. When we're talking about deserves also includes the company, the real world element, the success of it. There's nothing that shows that your one would be successful, okay? Secondly, at the end of The Princess and the Frog, all of the characters get their ending. Tiana has learned how to be a full person and how to fall in love, and she gets her restaurant, which is the thing she strove for her entire life. Naveen finds a purpose in life. Louis gets to play trumpets with the humans, and that Lottie chick's probably getting a pedophilia charge. But other than that, the characters are all wrapped up and completed. I mean, you yourself compared this Disney animated film to The Menu and The Bear. This is not the type of sequel that Disney would ever make, and thus it's not one that is deserving of existing. Big Hero 6 is gift wrapped for a sequel, and the fact that they've never tapped into it means that they absolutely should.
Time. All right, gentlemen. That was a great round. Let's go ahead and move you to the back. I'm going to go ahead and bring myself back in and bring in our lovely judges in the form of Alec Miller, Ellen the Spaceman, and Caleb Mashed Potatoes. If you think I'm going to do any fact checking when Aaron is a competitor, well, there's absolutely no point. If Aaron's saying it, more than likely he's already done the fact checking for me. This is why my job is very easy tonight. But who had the more salient points? Well, that's not for me to decide. That is for you three to decide. Alec, I start with you as concisely as you can in about 90 seconds or less. Who gets your point and why?
I went with Aaron. I think he just was able to attack Princess and the Frog more and talked enough about his and kind of kept it on the offensive side and was able to say why his deserved a sequel more than Chad's did.
All right. First vote goes to Aaron, Spaceman. Who gets your point and why in 90?
All right, man. First of all, can we just appreciate all the OGs that are here tonight? This is a beautiful thing to see. I'm so happy. This is amazing. And both had good arguments. Aaron, you did great. But I'm going to give it to Chad because he gave me something I really want to see, honestly. And he talking about the culture of New Orleans and the music that inspired that kind of stuff. And to see this lady, this not princess, she really was the princess, but this common character that we grew to come into her own. Now we get to see her successfully get her dream and do this business, this restaurant. So I really appreciated that. So I'll go with Chad.
She wasn't a princess, she was a queen, recognized. Anyway, Caleb, down to you for the tiebreak.
All right. I think that as much as Chad tried, he didn't really lay out any kind of much of a plan other than it's going to be like Ratatouille or The Bear, which is a very strange argument to go with. And I think Aaron just picked apart his entire thing. He came with facts like that Big Hero 6 had higher numbers. People are more interested in it, so I went with Aaron.
All right. Split decision, but the vote goes to Aaron. Thank you, gentlemen. Move you right to the back. And we shall bring in our competitors. Dynamite start to a dynamite game already. I am loving this. So let's move right along. So we're going to talk, speaking of Strange World coming out in 2022, 2022 was a very weird year for movies, wasn't it? Every single time you had something just absolutely great came out, you had something that was either the most forgettable thing ever, or you just got some bizarre shit. Let's just call it what it is. So I posed the question to these two fine gentlemen. What is the most overrated film of 2022? Aaron, you chose, you are going second. You're going first on this round. So once you're done coughing, once you're ready, the time starts when you begin.
Sure. All right. Okay, so when this question was asked to us in the chat, this was the first question I answered because there was just a very immediate guttural instinct of an answer. And then the Academy Awards backed me up on that. So my answer is Elvis. And I'm going to get ahead of it because I know it's going to
get a huge jug.
Austin Butler delivers probably a legitimately Oscar-winning worthy performance in this film, but a good performance does not make a great film. And Elvis is far from a great film. Baz Luhrmann as a director is the living essence of style over substance. His flashy camera tricks and insane editing and his odd way of writing a screenplay, which, by the way, he did so much writing on this film that he has 2 different credits, like his name is there twice, which is utterly insane to think that you wrote a script that much. All of these tricks lead to a flashy film that overrides the story it's trying to tell.
In time. All right. Elvis is on the board. Chad, when you are ready, time is yours.
Well, I mean, in the last round, Aaron was just talking about a movie that made a killing at the box office, and now I'm going to talk about another movie that made an even bigger killing at the box office. I'm talking Avatar: The Way of Water here. This movie was kind of pegged to be like the second coming because it's been 13 years in the making, and then when it came out, anybody wanted to talk about was James is going to make his money. James is going to do it. He's going to make $2 billion. It's going to become, and it ended up becoming number 4 of all time at the box office. And it's like, when people go to see this, are they going because they think that they're going to see a really fantastic story, or are they going because it's kind of like an obligation now? And I feel like really the technology that he was able to focus on over story is really going to be what is going to hurt this film over time. Whereas I think, Elvis actually is going to age like a fine wine.
All right. Personally, I'm just going to not think about fine wine and Elvis in the same sentence, but Aaron, your 2-minute expansion starts when you are ready, sir.
Elvis isn't even 6 months old, and it's aging like the alcohol Tom Hanks drank while preparing for that role, because that is one of the sloppiest performances of one of the best actors of the last few generations. He is drowning under the makeup and fat suit that they put him in to have him portray Colonel Tom Parker. That Deutschland KFC accent that he's trying to pull off doesn't work. Like, I know Parker's accent is supposed to be weird, but this just comes off as unnatural in all the wrong ways. And the fact that he is actually the central character of the film, he's the narrator, he's the POV, he's the one that you're seeing the Elvis story through, greatly affects your perception of the movie, because his performance is so bad. It distracts you from the performance that Austin Butler is giving. And again, when we're talking about Baz Luhrmann and his actual technical direction of the film earned 8 Academy Awards, including a Best Picture award and a boatload of technical awards. And some of those things, like the cinematography and the editing, are some of the biggest issues with the film, because they're so scattershot, they're so flashy and attempting to look unique and stand out, that it takes away from the actual story. If a more straightforward, not to say there can't be unique elements to this film, but if a more straightforward, more guarded down director had actually tackled Elvis's story, I think we could have seen a truly heartbreaking approach to a story that is genuinely heartbreaking for a man who had it all but really had nothing. The Transformers movies make $1 billion at the box office every time they come out, except for the good ones. So box office is not a way of overrating a film. Avatar, first off, has the same reception as mine. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, they're damn near identical. And mine has double the Academy Award nominations yours does. People go to the theaters because they know that James Cameron takes 13 years to deliver them a visual experience. Nobody has said anything brilliant about the story.
Time. All right, Chad. Your 2 minutes starts when you start talking.
Look, you say no one has said anything brilliant about the story of Avatar: The Way of Water, but nominating it for Best Picture, that's exactly what you're doing. And with Jim Cameron coming out, and like I said, just going through and being like, all right, how can I give it the best shots of all time with this camera that I love? It's like, that's all he focused on. He didn't focus on story. In fact, he recycled the same villain, gave us like a bunch of characters we really don't care about. We don't hardly even know how to pronounce their names. And it's very, very long. I know Elvis is long too, but this is like an entire man's life that we're seeing. There's a lot of people who actually really, really love Elvis, and from like the heart. And it's not just them looking at this like, oh, I'm supposed to love this great Avatar 2 because it's 13 years in the making. And, Jim Cameron, basically came in and just, did his Jim Cameron shit. But the thing is, it's not going to age well. It's going to dip over the coming years. We saw the same exact thing happen with Avatar. It was the biggest, most nuanced thing of all time when it came out. People were like, this is the greatest film ever made. And then right after, years, a year down the road, even people were like, oh, it's actually not that great. As soon as you put that on, your small TV, you're going to see it looks like a cartoon in some ways. Elvis, I know it's easy to come in and shit on Elvis because Baz Luhrmann is insane. He's an insane man. He does a lot of things on cocaine, it feels like, but that's a part of his great style that he loves to do. And people love his films. People love Elvis. People love Moulin Rouge. It's easy to come in and attack certain performances like Tom Hanks, but really he was playing it true to this actual character in the movie.
Enough time. All right, gentlemen. Open debate time. Try and please again. Try not to talk over each other, and let the chaos start. When the time starts, when one of you start talking.
So I know like your big like point is talking about like Tom Hanks isn't good in the movie. Tom Hanks is very weird, and he's the narrator, so it makes the movie weird. But that's not the whole film. Like I think he's good in the movie, but I can see why some people might not like him. The entire movie doesn't rest on him. Austin Butler is phenomenal. He like changed his entire like vocal cord stuff to actually sound like Elvis. And the reason why Baz Luhrmann was perfect director for this movie is because that's exactly what Elvis was. Showy, flashy, all the brilliant costumes, costume design was an excellent nomination for this film. The cinematography, the editing, you say it's bad. I think it's fantastic. The way they show all of these like incredible sequences of him singing and the fans screaming, it's like the same exact thing that you would want to see if they did like the same thing with the Beatles and Beatlemania. This is Elvis, and I watched this with my mother, and she adored this as an Elvis fan. And I think that's the thing about this is it stays true to the character, and it actually really tells a fascinating story about this character. And it is a tragedy. You do feel that. Maybe you didn't, but I think that's why it's where it is actually a little bit underrated, is because there's a lot of people who do want to shit on this movie. Yes.
First off, it's not underrated. Again, highly acclaimed, high audience scores, and it got 8 Academy Award nominations. So there's no world in which you can say that this is underrated.
It is, because you and Will and a lot of other people will go ahead and shit on a lot of the different parts of the movie. So you guys underrated.
What I'm saying is, first off, again, I gave you Austin Butler. He is incredible in the film. But one incredible performance that reminds people of Elvis at the center of a film that is unfocused, poorly edited. It's got all sorts of technical issues. Because first off, the back and forth between the narration and then in the story that's actually going on, it takes you out of it, because the movie will leave you sometimes for a half hour at a time in the actual story that's happening. And then you'll get Parker interjecting over the story with the narration. And I think just the way that they decided to use it and intercut it, I gave you your time. The way that they decide to use it and intercut it and put the film together makes it distracting. Every single time that voice comes back in, I'm pulled out of this film because I want to like it more because the performance is there. I'm not even saying Elvis is a terrible film. I'm saying it's overrated because trying to acclaim it as one of the best films of the year when it has so many issues that are apparent on the surface that's incredible. I think that you think the first Avatar is overrated based off what you're trying to say about its sequel. And I would agree with you. For the reception it received at the time, the first one was overrated. This one is not. It made the money it made because that's what James Cameron does. People go to the theaters to watch his movies because they are a visual experience. And this movie provided the visual experience. Seeing this in IMAX 3D, those swimming shots, those ocean shots, you've never seen anything like this. But nobody left this movie trying to proclaim that it was some high art of acting or writing or anything else. Even its Academy Award nominations. Its Best Picture nom is because there's 10 of them, and they're celebrating the fact that it's a technically high art film, but nobody thinks it's going to win. Whereas people are supporting Elvis to win when it's
there are people who think it's going to win, but no one really thinks Elvis is going to win either. They're both on the same level. You said it yourself. They're both rated on the same level. Yours is just inflated because of that big box office.
Okay. Very, very nice. We're going to wrap things up, starting with Aaron. Your 1 minute starts when you start talking.
I would just like to point out to the judges whether that was a trip of words or not, but he just started to say that mine was inflated because of a box office when his was the one that made $2 billion. Look, at the end of the day, nobody is overrating Avatar. Its awards nominations across the board are for the technical side of things, which it is an incredible film to watch technically. Nobody's acclaiming the story. Nobody's acclaiming its characters. Nobody is acclaiming the 10 children that they've added. None of it. It's a visual experience you see 1 to 2 times, and we're not going back to Pandora until the next one comes out in a few years, where everyone will go see it to get a visual experience you can't get from other films. There are tons of musical biopics with tons of performances as good as Austin Butler's is. But the difference is those films don't have the mess of filmmaking around it and the distractions that Baz Luhrmann tries to put in with his visual style. This movie's not Rocket Man, it's Bohemian Rhapsody, and it's overrated like that one.
Time. All right, Chad, let's go ahead and put a bow on this. Your 1 minute starts when you start talking.
Bohemian Rhapsody was a film made by Queen to basically, inflate their egos. But this was a film made by people who love Elvis, for people who love Elvis, and for people who don't love Elvis, who can love Elvis. And now I'm becoming an even bigger Elvis fan because of that performance that Austin Butler gave, but because of everything else in the movie. It's crafted incredibly well because Baz Luhrmann is just a master of his craft, just like James Cameron, but not at the same level. James Cameron is just so inflated with everything, and everybody will just wants to pat this guy on the back, but really he'll bring you the technicals, he'll bring you not much else. Aaron even said, no one's saying that the story's good, no one's saying that the actors are good, no one's saying that a lot of these things are good except for the technicals, yet it got nominated for Best Picture. For me, Best Picture is not saying, oh, well, let's pat you on the back because of all these great technicals. It's saying this is one of the best films of the year, and it was not.
Time. All right, gentlemen, great round again. I'm going to put you in the back. I'm going to bring myself back on, and I'm going to bring our lovely judges on. I'm not going to, again, fact check anything here. Everything was pretty straightforward, but I am going to give some fun facts. Whenever I describe Baz Luhrmann, I always talk about him not really directing his films, but hiring a sentient pile of cocaine to direct his films. Whereas with James Cameron, I'm pretty sure he just has, a sentient pile of cocaine with a master's degree in film. So, with that being said, Dr. Spaceman, in 90 seconds, who gets your point and why?
This was interesting because I was thinking I didn't know the answers. I didn't know nothing about nothing. And in my mind, as soon as I heard you ask a question, my first thing, and I don't want to be biased here, but my first thing was, oh, the Elvis movie. Oh, wait, okay. Oh, that's not good. But then Avatar was pretty overrated too, but if I like both their arguments a lot. However, I'm going to give and not just a bias because I thought of it too, but I'm going to go with Aaron. I'm going to go with Aaron on this one.
Perfect. Mashed potatoes. Let's mash up a good answer in 90 seconds. Who gets your point?
I don't know if it's good, but I'll try. So I took a lot of notes on that one, actually. I think Chad had it overall for a while. And then Aaron really came in at the end with his closing arguments and his clapback and his it's not Rocket Man, it's Bohemian Rhapsody line was pretty great. I think I have to give it to Aaron as well.
Fair enough. Aaron takes the second point of the game. We will hear from Alec in round 3, of course.
I felt good about that one too.
You should both feel good about that one because that was a hell of a debate. And just when you think that things have, that the chaos is going to settle, nope, we're going straight into absolute chaos. We're going right from biopics of musicians to biopics of directors. Why? Well, The Fabelmans was a great film. Whether you thought that film was overrated or not, you have to give it up for Steven Spielberg writing and directing his own story and not making it an overblown affair. But it begs the question: how many other directors deserve their own biopics? And that's the exact question I posed to these fine gentlemen. Question number 3, what director most deserves their own biopic? Chad, you opted to go first on this question, so time starts when you stop talking, sir.
All right. Yeah. Very interesting question here. A lot of directors you can choose from, but I chose Mr. The man, the myth, the legend, Stanley Kubrick. He's one of the best and most celebrated directors of all time. Most of his films are like highly, highly acclaimed. Like on the Sight and Sound poll, I think he got at least 2 of them on there, like 2001 and The Shining. And this man was so great at making movies, but there's also a little bit of a problematic aspect to him that I think he would make such a fantastic character in a biopic that it would be so great to see explored, because he had this determination to get the best shot, to craft the best sequences, to get the most out of his actors. But the problem is, he did a lot of this in very weird ways that probably wouldn't happen today. And I think that would make such an interesting story to have in a biopic.
And that is time. All right, Aaron, time starts when you start talking.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the preamble, which I feel like this was made decently clear, but I still want to drive it home. Despite the fact that The Fabelmans was used as the setup for this, I do not want this director in the modern day to direct their own biopic. Spielberg did a great job. I don't want this one to do it. I just wanted to put that out there. I went with Francis Ford Coppola. Specifically, my film would be focused on Coppola in the 70s. When you look at the work that he did in the 1970s, he was at the forefront of a new revolution of directors who were leading change in Hollywood. He directed some of the biggest films of all time during the 70s, and he worked with all the hottest actors. And I sort of envision this film as this sprawling, kind of like Fabelmans-ish, sprawling 3-hour epic going from snapshot to snapshot of his life during mostly the 70s. And it's sort of like the Straight Outta Compton of film nerd films, because you can bring in all these different cameos and people that he interacted with.
And time. All right, let's go ahead and expand on these principles, on these questions. Chad, your expansion starts when you start directing.
Look, I'm actually not going to say that that doesn't sound like a good idea, because that actually sounds kind of interesting. I just don't see why you would have to focus on Francis Ford Coppola for that, because there was just a lot of different directors around that time, just like interacting, doing some great things, innovating. Like you had George Lucas, around there, Scorsese, just like so many different names that were actually in that kind of realm of the 70s, innovating and doing a bunch of stuff. I don't see why Francis Ford Coppola specifically there is that interesting of a person to have be like a character in a biopic. Like if you want to see like a documentary of that time, that could be kind of cool. And actually, I think I have seen that documentary. But really, like as a biopic, it doesn't sound super interesting. And even if it is, its focus is more wide than on just like one specific guy. And I don't even know if Francis Ford Coppola is the most interesting guy to focus on if you want to focus on directors around that time. Even like Stanley Kubrick is a more interesting director from that time and all the other times that he was working, because this is a man with like such a drive and intense auteur-based like need to craft the best films, that I think that it would make an epic biopic to show him as a character, basically the monster, but also the genius. And I feel like you'd have like some really great things, because you have so many films that you could focus on, but I think like the main focus would be around like The Shining, because that is one of the biggest examples of showing his genius, but also his monstrosity as far as like what he did with that film, and Shelley Duvall. And then she could be a really fantastic character to glam onto and to really have that emotionality with her, because you want to see this drive, but also, and the genius, but also like the tragedy of what it can do to people.
Time. All right, Aaron, the floor is yours for you to direct when you start talking.
So to hit back at the why is Coppola the person to focus on in the 70s, I think it's because he made the biggest films consistently, and so you can get the biggest snapshot of people within it. Spielberg didn't begin really ramping up until the end of the 70s. He was a part of all of it, but he didn't really begin ramping up until the end. Same thing with Scorsese, same thing with Brian De Palma, George Lucas, even, because no one really talks about THX or American Graffiti. Star Wars is where it really picks up for him. Francis Ford Coppola got going much earlier, and so I think you can focus on the developments that were made earlier in the 70s through him better because he was actively working on films and working with actors much quicker than these other guys were. And so to kind of get into it, for me, I wrote down essentially what for me would be the biggest snapshots. And I pulled out 4 major moments of his career to focus on. Similar to The Fabelmans, which begins kind of in an offshoot when he was a little kid to introduce the concept of his love of filmmaking before going into the main story. I would start in the late 50s or early 60s when Coppola is actually in college, because I think here you can introduce his philosophy on filmmaking, how he approaches cinema, and you can use this time to introduce some of the players that will return later in the film. Once we get into the actual main story, the 3 biggest ones that stood out to me that haven't been covered yet, because obviously we had The Offer on Paramount Plus, that did cover a chunk of his career there, with The Godfather, the first one. I would say the writing of the script for Patton, which, if you don't know, he began writing that script and then was fired part of the way through, but the actor George C. Scott stuck his neck out to bring him back. I would say the second act is his 1974 with The Godfather Part 2, The Conversation, and writing The Great Gatsby. And Apocalypse Now is, of course, this big bombastic third
Time. All right. Things are getting bombastic here at the Battlegrounds, and they're even going to get more bombastic in the open debate. Gentlemen, as respectively as you can, bring the chaos. When one of you starts talking, the timer starts.
So to talk about Kubrick for a second, again, similar. It is a great answer, and I can absolutely see where you would come from on wanting to make a film on him. But the problem is the most interesting aspects of Kubrick's career in terms of the direction, because the earliest stuff, there's not really a lot to dig at there. It does come during the period of like The Shining. And I feel like at that point, you're making a film that could almost accidentally more so become about exploiting the things that someone like Shelley Duvall went through than they are about the genius of Kubrick. And again, that's not even the intention, clearly. It's just when you're watching a film in which your protagonist is the one that's driving a woman mad through his filmmaking techniques because he's such a perfectionist, he wants to watch a woman go crazy in order for her to portray the crazy he wants on screen. I just feel like that puts the audience in a position of where you can't really enjoy what you're trying to watch because A, you know it's real, and B, it's horrific to watch. Whereas I think Coppola's story is one that will have those horrors of filmmaking, but none of them are directly caused by Coppola himself. In fact, he's the one often mediating and solving the issues directly. So it makes him a much more supportable protagonist in the lens of a film that you're trying to watch.
Look, I mean, I understand your attack here, but I don't want to watch Francis Ford Coppola, the mediator who, talks to actors and handles out the issues. Like, this is why, I think that Kubrick would be much, much more interesting. Like, look, I understand if handled wrong, it could absolutely go into that territory that you're talking about. We've seen great films like The Social Network and Whiplash, and like a lot of these films that like show this like drive to experience excellence, even like Citizen Kane and stuff like that, that drive to experience that excellence and be the best that you can be. And the protagonist could end up being problematic, a little bit of a jerk. You appreciate the genius, but then you also see like the madness with the rise of stuff like Breaking Bad and The Sopranos, and even films that Coppola has made, The Godfather. Those aren't really likable protagonists, yet you like those films.
So my quick interjection, and again to double down on this point, is every single source that you have cited, because I agree with you. Again, I see where you're coming from. Every single source that you have cited is a
Or
work
fictional.
of fiction.
I got
My
you.
concern is this is a very real story, and telling this story through the lens of Stanley Kubrick, the mad genius who drove a woman insane to the point that it eventually destroyed her career and her taste for Hollywood. Again, that is not the same as watching, I believe his name is Andrew, go down that road in Whiplash with Terrence, played by, again, fictional characters
Unfortunately,
versus real people.
fortunately and unfortunately, it's a biopic, and I think these are the stories that actually need to be told and need to be brought into more of the mainstream so people can see this and not follow the same things. Of course, it would need to be done tastefully. Yours would need to be done tastefully. All of these films that done, if they're not done tastefully, then they will end up how you're saying. But in my vision of this film, it will be done tastefully, and it's not going to be a movie saying that Kubrick is a perfect person. It's going to be saying that he's flawed. But I think it's going to be a vastly more interesting film than anything that you're pitching. Yours is just kind of like a meandering, like, oh, he learned how to write a screenplay. Okay, but you also brought it up with the offer too.
That's not
like
what
the
I'm.
more interesting things that. Go ahead.
The thing is that's not what I'm pitching. I'm not saying we're going to watch Kubrick or we're going to watch Coppola take a screenplay class. What I'm saying is you get to see a snapshot of all of these different sets throughout the 70s through the lens of the man who's on each of them.
All right. Gentlemen, we are now going to go into our closing. Chad, when you are ready, enter your act 3 when you start talking.
What we have here is we do have like what is known as like the safe answer and what is known as the more, I think, interesting answer here with Kubrick. Coppola is the safe answer. Coppola is the one that's like, we want to like learn about him taking that screenplay class. But like really, like he's not that interesting of a person to follow. I feel like there are other people like, I don't care about like beginning of the 70s, into the 70s, whatever. I feel like, George Lucas, a lot of these other people who have made mistakes in their career and have done, great things, but also terrible things, but also, weird things. And I want to see those things happen on screen because I think that makes them more interesting characters. I think Coppola's family is interesting. I think his movies are great and very interesting, but him himself in a biopic is just kind of boring. But with Kubrick, the man, the myth, the legend, the genius, but the monster is something that we can really, really be interested to see on screen. And it would be amazing.
And time. All right, Aaron, let's not pull an M. Night Shyamalan. Let's actually have this end without any twists in 60 seconds when you start talking.
I don't even know how that would be possible in one of these. Okay. Natural disasters. The firing of Harvey Keitel. Martin Sheen suffering a heart attack at a very young age. Marlon Brando's overall behavior, and Philippine extras leaving mid-scene shooting to enter actual warfare. These are just a handful of the things that went down on the set of Apocalypse Now. And all of this led to Francis Ford Coppola suffering a nervous breakdown on this set. And he still pulled it together to make one of the greatest classics of all time. And that's just the third act of a movie that I'm pitching to you, in which we see Coppola go through the 70s, deal with all the issues that come with working in the 70s and advancing the film industry, and still making some of the best films back to back to back to back to back. Your film could become very distasteful very quickly, even with the best of directors at the helm. And I think the rest of Kubrick's life is not interesting enough to even try.
Time. All right, gentlemen, great round as always. I'm going to bring myself back on. And once again, I'm not going to do any fact checking. I'm just going to say thank you both to Aaron and Chad for not making any of us sit through a pitch on Uwe Boll's life.
I want to see it.
All right. Well, Caleb, you may want to see that, but you know what I want to see? I want to see what your answer is in 90 seconds or less. Who got your point and why?
All right. I think all over this one. I think Aaron had a really good pitch, like a more fleshed out idea. But I think Chad just had a more convincing point. He had a lot of good lines. The safe versus the interesting answer. Coppola's movies are great movies, but the man's kind of boring. The man, the myth, the legend, the monster, the genius. I think I agree, and I think Aaron was kind of wrong in saying that it would be a horror film. I think there's a lot of Chad did a good job of laying down that there is a baseline of these types of movies that people would watch. So I went with Chad.
Okay, first vote goes to Chad. Alec, you're on the deck. In 90 seconds or less.
I also went with Chad. I think Chad was able to sell me more on his movie centered around this one moment in time, whereas Aaron's idea was a little too like scattered for me, and I think that Chad was able to sell me more on focusing on this one event and was able to fight back against Aaron's arguments against him.
Okay.
Can I real quick before so I know my opinion don't matter. I was gonna go with Chad too, but Chad, I want to see in the movie when Kubrick did the moon landing when he filmed that. I do want to see that.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right.
I mean, it's kind of unfair because he was there for it. Anyway.
I'll write it into the script. It'll happen.
All right. So we go on to talking about great directors. Now we're going to talk about, well, I don't really care. We're going to talk about one of my favorite films of 2022, Glass Onion. Glass Onion was a great movie. Did everything right. It did everything it could to follow up a wonderful film in Knives Out, and somehow exceeded my expectations and a lot of other people's expectations. So what I want to know, and I'm going to rephrase it the way that's probably going to show on the bottom of the screen in case Aaron changed already because he's a genius. What actor or actress should be the killer in the next Benoit Blanc film? Not Knives Out film, because Rian Johnson wants it known as Benoit Blanc Mysteries, not Knives Out Mysteries. Get it right, Netflix. Anyway, Aaron, you're on the deck. Give us your pitch, with your 60 seconds.
Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to begin this round with a bit of air of honesty. And as I said earlier, I take no reflection against any of the writers who helped write my matches because, as the person who writes, it's a tough thing to do. But I like being honest about things. This is the type of question that I would never write because it is so wickedly open-ended and there's a million billion places you could take this. Because the truth is, there's no rhyme or reason for who should be the killer in a film outside of them being cast. So with no concept of what the role is, mentally I was sort of forced to build from two perspectives. What would the story be for this movie? Because you have to build a story in order to have somebody who fits. And then once you build a story in your head that makes sense, who fits that role? And I'll get into more of what I came up with in my head in the 2 minutes. But the person that I went with is someone who is currently Hollywood's it girl, Jenna Ortega. And that will be the opening.
All right. So
I love you all.
And so Aaron destroying my question rating.
I'm sorry. It was to help the pitch. I'm sorry, man. I love you.
Don't apologize. Like I said, I bring the chaos, and Aaron is just feeding off that chaos. So Chad, before the ripper starts ripping on my question rating, your 60 seconds starts when you start talking.
Okay. Just make sure I wasn't muted. Knives Out has been stellar so far with its first 2 entries, and I hope it stays that way. With this, when this question came up, I had so many damn answers in my head that it could be. So Aaron's kind of right there. But ultimately, I was thinking about what would make a good story and how could I relate it to my pick for actor. I decided to go with somebody who hasn't been in the spotlight for decades, despite popping up now and again here and there. Haley Joel Osment. He made our eyes widen in The Sixth Sense, and even before that, as a cute little baby Forrest Gump. He was never able to replicate that success as an adult, and I think this could lead into a really interesting, fun story about child actors who grew into adults with issues. In fact, one of those issues could be that one of them turns into a murderous lunatic. You could have Haley play a fictionalized version of himself, either with the same name or with a different name, and bring in other child actors. And I have a pitch I will get into. I think this would be the first route to go in order to make the story killer combo similar but different. Let's bring Haley Joel Osment back and have some fun with it. I bet he would love to star in the next Ryan
Right.
Johnson film, and it would boost his career.
All right. So while my heart is extremely sad that no one actually picked Ryan Johnson himself, Aaron, your 2-minute expansion for Jenna Ortega starts when you start not tearing my question apart.
Okay. So why Jenna Ortega? So first off, the story angle that I decided to take with this is building off of things that we've seen already in the Knives Out films. In the first Knives Out film, we've been shown that Blanc is not against working with somebody that he feels is of trust. We saw that with Ana de Armas in the first one, and we actually saw that again with Janelle Monáe in the second one. We also saw in the second one that if Benoit Blanc is tricked in a way that he believes he shouldn't be, he goes absolutely off the rail. So my angle with Jenna Ortega is to put her into this mystery, whatever it may be. I didn't go that far with it, but put her into the mystery in the Ana de Armas role from the first one. Except, God damn it. Except that this time she is the killer and obviously not the innocent one. In terms of the actress herself, why I think she fits this role, as I said, Jenna Ortega is currently Hollywood's it girl. She's coming off the back of a brilliant year. Horror fans are loving her for her work in X and Scream. Teenagers are loving her for her work in Wednesday, as well as people who are just fans of the franchise. And her dramatic performance in The Fallout at the start of last year was one that earned her legitimate acclaim, even more than some of her bigger films. She is succeeding on all fronts. So having her be a big face of a film like this will only serve to benefit this movie. Secondly, she is somebody that people like. So putting her in that Ana de Armas role, similar to as she was, makes people believe her and want to back her. So then once we reach the third act and the twist is delivered, that not only is she the killer, but she has managed to deceive both the audience and Benoit Blanc, that benefits Daniel Craig's character because we can send him into an ultimate spy role with all the profanities you would like to throw in, well, the Southern Comfort version of them at least. And I think it's a move that can benefit both characters.
All right. So if that's how you actually pronounce her name, I have been doing that wrong since 2019. I am an idiot. All right. Chad, with all the best pronunciations you can, your 2 minutes starts when you are ready.
All right, I'm going to lay out a pitch now. My pitch is a version of Knives Out 3, which could be called something like Almost Famous, a Knives Out mystery, or a Benoit Blanc mystery to make Will happy. It centers around a reality show of former child actors who all have some sort of issue and perhaps some sort of motive for why they would commit the crime that eventually happens after the show begins shooting. We could add stakes too with the show airing and being popular. So even though somebody on set was murdered, the news hasn't broken. So they try to keep it quiet while Benoit Blanc shows up to investigate. And maybe he ends up playing a role pretending to be a child star from a forgotten Southern sitcom. Or he could actually be from a forgotten Southern sitcom, because we keep learning more and more about Benoit with every movie. That could be a fun little thing. And then, he can actually go in and have like his own catchphrase and stuff like that. It could be really fun. There could be so many shenanigans and comedic bits to go on based on the reality TV, like on-set drama, in addition to the murder investigation. Haley Joel's motive would be either to kill one of the child actors starring on the show with him because they got a part Haley wanted, or to kill one of the producers of the show out of pure revenge for turning him down for a role that could have set the trajectory of his career on a great path. I think Ryan could have fun with this because he's not a stranger to TV. He directed some episodes of Breaking Bad, has a new show out called Poker Face, and wrote on Joseph Gordon-Levitt's show Hit Record. Honestly, I don't really understand Aaron's pitch. I don't know if he's pitching the same exact first movie, but instead of like one Hispanic actor, just replace her with another one. And, honestly, Jenna Ortega, I think, is too popular right now. I think people would actually call it like right out of the gate, like, oh, Jenna's the killer, because she is that big horror personality. They would call it like right from the get-go, to be honest. I think it's not that interesting of a choice.
Time. All right. I love Aaron's wow face. That was kind of awesome. All right. So we're all going to have our wow faces at the end of this round, the open debate. Gentlemen, the time starts when one of you starts speaking.
I would just like to cut in real quick here and say that is completely, utterly disrespectful to imply that I would simply be replacing one Hispanic actress for another when both of them have earned their right to their careers thus far in Hollywood.
That's why I was thinking it was weird that you would say, like, let's have Jenna be
okay.
Anna.
To clear up your confusion. Popular. The difference is I'm pitching the character's role in the story, not a full story. And the question did not ask us to pitch a full story. So I shouldn't be docked points for that. What I'm saying is, in the mystery, have her fill a role similar to Ana de Armas and Janelle Monáe in those two films, except this time she is the killer. Because A, she is convincing enough as an actress that I think she could pull off both sides of that coin, and B, the audience would root for her because they want to root for Jenna Ortega. They would buy into her act because people like her. And then C, it can benefit Benoit Blanc's character by allowing him to have that explosive moment he had at the end of Glass Onion on a further scale, because he was actually properly deceived this time by somebody who may be just as smart as him, or they got the better of his trust in that moment. My thing with yours is, I just don't understand why for a Knives Out film you would go down this road of child stars in this reality show and like this. And how meta are we going? Is the whole cast filled with former child stars? Or
yeah, so they'll be like
concept is just.
They'll be like former child stars, but like, they could either be fictionalized or they could actually go meta with it and just have Haley Joel Osment and Corey Feldman and all these people, come in and actually, do their thing. That could be fun, or they could go fictionalized if that's what they choose to do. But really, the story is the story.
Well, and so my argument against that is, if you're not, so there's three ways that you could approach that. You could go completely fictional and just have Haley Joel Osment play one of these characters. But then at that point, I feel like with the commentary you're telling with the story, it becomes incredibly obvious that he is the killer because he's the only one that in real life was a former child star. You could go the route of they're playing fictional characters, but they're all played by actual former child stars, which I feel like is just a weird level of meta that this film doesn't need to go to. But then if you go the route that they're all real people playing fictional versions of themselves, now it just feels like, I don't know, that just feels too mean-spirited.
I mean, that
Haley
was
Joel has spoken about the fact that being out of the spotlight and like losing the spotlight the way that he did had an effect on him. And the only reason he's still acting today is because of a genuine love of acting. So I just don't see why he would even take a role like this. This feels really weirdly mean-spirited.
No. You're making it mean-spirited. I'm not making it mean-spirited. I think this could be a really fun commentary on like the whole child actor thing. But really, it would be Haley Joel poking fun at himself and everybody else, but also getting to be that prestigious actor in the next Knives Out film, because that's what these films do. They're star makers. They, with Janelle Monáe, people were talking about her so much after this film, and they would do the same thing for Haley Joel. So that's why he would take that role. And yeah, it would be more like fictionalized. It wouldn't be as meta, because Knives Out hasn't really gone that way before. And I don't know if like that's exactly like what you're pitching, but like honestly, I think that your thing goes a little bit too far from like what Knives Out is trying to do as well, is because the killers have been purposefully white and male the whole time. I don't think that Jenna Ortega really fits that role.
Time. All right, gentlemen. Yet another stellar round. We're going to move everyone to the back. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. We get to close it up. So, Aaron, you get to close out this mystery when the timer starts.
Okay, well, first off, the fact that, which I never even thought of it this way, but the fact that both the previous films did have white male killers means that if somebody is looking at it from that perspective, I think the Jenna Ortega pick being the actual killer throws them off even further, because she is the furthest thing from what we've had as the killer previously. But secondly, and I don't know, maybe this is too mean for myself towards him, Jenna Ortega, at her young age in her career, has already proven she can deliver top performances. She can fill the leading role in these films and deliver the performance. And again, and maybe not having a full story will hurt me, but pitching the angle of having her be the assistant who is this time actually the killer could provide some benefit towards Daniel Craig. Putting Haley Joel Osment in that role, he hasn't had a role that big since he was a kid. Are we even sure he can actually act and deliver on the level that these other actors can? Because there's nothing that proves he can.
All right, Chad, wrap up your mystery when you begin.
No, there is nothing that proves he can, except for when he comes into this movie and delivers. That's what I want to see. I want to see Haley come in and show exactly what it showed us when he was a kid, and prove that actors are more than just what they were as kids. We've seen a lot of different actors come out. I don't have one off the top of my head, but come out as, or like Robert Downey Jr. made like a really big comeback as like a teen, and then now he's an adult big actor. Haley Joel, I'm not saying he's going to be at that level, but I think he can actually. This would be a really great career booster for him. So that would be why he deserves it. I know it's not a deserve, but why he should be is because I think it would be a very interesting thing. I don't think people would expect him, because he does have that baby face as the kid from The Sixth Sense, the kid from Forrest Gump. But you're pitching the same exact movie as the first one, and I just don't think it would be that surprising, because Jenna Ortega is the horror actress. She is Wednesday. They're going to call it from a mile away, and just because she's popular doesn't mean that she's the best choice.
Time. All right, great round, guys. We're going to move you to the back. We're going to move me on. In a very odd twist, I actually do have some fact checks. Both competitors say that Haley Joel Osment has not done anything to prove that he could do this. That is actually fundamentally untrue. He was one of the co-stars of the Hulu TV show that was produced by Seth Rogen called Future Man. Mm-hmm. He definitely does not have a baby face anymore. He is fulled out, and he has a beard. He has gained a lot of weight, but he actually has shown that he can be a little darker. But obviously, do not let that sway you into your judging, especially since no competitor actually brought that up.
I mean, also Tusk and The Boys and a lot of things on IFC. Like, he's done a lot.
So he actually has been in the spotlight quite a bit. Not starring, but in very pivotal roles. With that being said, Sinister Alec Miller, in 90 seconds, who gets as the killer?
I went with Aaron's. I didn't think Chad's argument was mean-spirited at all. I just think that Aaron might have actually benefited from not going to a full pitch and kind of just give his idea of what he would want Jenna Ortega to do instead of going completely into the pitch. I think that actually helped his argument. So I went with Aaron.
Awesome. Alan Shepard, Dr. Spaceman. Who gets your vote?
Well, I went the opposite way. I thought really Chad kind of they had back and forth a lot of really good, compelling, interesting arguments, but Chad just kind of hit it at the end there with she's known as the horror person, so it might make an audience think, oh, it's obviously going to be her. So I kind of went with Chad.
All right, mashed potatoes. Wrap this up in a bow. Who gets your vote and why?
Absolutely. I've got to vehemently disagree with Dr. Spaceman. Like Chad laid out the exact like formula for how it would go, and it has to be a white male person and everything. I think Aaron used that masterfully to counter and saying that it would be less expected. It would be more of a twist. And so I think all over this was a really weird match. Like for most of it, they were arguing about Chad's movie and not about the actors that they wanted to be in it. So it was really strange. But I think Aaron won it hands down. Like Alex said, benefited by not doing a full pitch.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go ahead and bring you back in. And your winner with a final score of 4-1, Aaron Ron Connole.
It was 3-1. I don't want to claim that extra point.
3-1. Okay. I can't do math. It's late.
You did write 5 questions, though, so I understand it.
I did write 5 questions. I wrote 5 weird-ass questions. You're welcome. All right, so Aaron, how do you feel about this victory?
No, it feels good. Everyone likes to win. No one likes to lose. I say that as a host. It's the truth. Listen, Chad's a great competitor. As I said at the start, part of the reason I paired us together is because we've both played in a title match, which means we had to win to make it to a title match. So I got exactly what I thought I would get, and in many ways, I didn't know what was coming, which means I got exactly what I thought I would get, because Chad is a thinker. At least that's my assessment of him. He's a thinker. He's very much like a scholar type debater. So his angles are always very well thought out. And I think that that's the biggest part of debating against him is you have to, when prepping for him, I was having to think just as much of what's the angle as like, what is the argument going to be? You know what I mean? I can, like, for something like the Princess and the Frog question, like there's the basic argument of what you could try to make, but then there's also what's the angle of the approach? Why are you saying it this way? Because Chad does put a lot of thought into what he's doing. And as the guy who runs the show, I respect the fuck out of that from him. So I think we had a good match.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of upcoming matches and everything, someone has called you out.
Yeah, Papa Smurf's been talking.
So yeah, Papa has called you out on 2 separate occasions. One,
Yes.
One after his loss against Noah McCausland, and one in his recent match against Zach Shelton. Papa wants some cannoli. What do you think about that?
He wants a piece of this Irish cannoli, and I think that his fat ass can take it all he likes. Look, I love Papa. Look, at the end of the day, his motto is he's everyone's 38th favorite dad, which means he's nobody's favorite dad. And I'm going to play him. 37. There you go. See, even you're liked more. I'm going to take him. I'm going to bend him over my knee like a good father should, and I'm going to teach him how to actually punish children. Papa wants to take on somebody who competed against a multi-defending champion and who today has just beaten somebody who also contended against that multi-contending champion. And Papa can't even get a positive win record together. That's all I have to say. It's technically against the rules. A good scheduler like myself wouldn't schedule the 2 of us to play, but Papa wants to smoke. Bring it on. Let's play.
Kermit's going to take Papa to the Rainbow Room. Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen.
I'd say I'd see you there, but I'll be in a hell of a lot more videos until then. So till the next upload a couple days from now.
Yeah. let's just face it, no one wants to see me in their S&M room, because if you do, I'm probably auditing taxes. Anyway, we're going on to Chad after that awkward exchange. Chad, how do you feel about this
What is
loss? And
auditing taxes like? I have to ask. What is it like for you to do in that room?
you
What does
don't
sexy tax auditing look like?
kind of like what real auditing is, just less fucking.
Good game, Chad.
I deserve more points for keeping a straight face as long as I did. Anyway, so Chad, speaking of fucking, how do you feel about this match, and why do you think that my questions fucked you over?
No, I mean it's just one of those things where like it's not that like your questions are not good or anything like that. It's just like I feel like they just don't really like fit my style, and that's like part of me not being able to, I guess, adapt to them. I'm not like a big pitch person, and I guess like the fourth question wasn't really calling for a pitch necessarily, but I felt like if you have to pitch an actor in a role, you should have a really good reason why. And I just feel like mine was actually pretty well thought out, and maybe my opponent's wasn't as much. But like that's the thing with debate, is that it works for different judges different ways. But that being said, there are a bunch of different rulings that I didn't really agree with here, but it's just how it goes. I think I brought it in a lot of different ways, but the rulings just didn't go in my favor. That being said, Aaron he's just a really, really smart guy. Like I knew, like going into this match, like Aaron's not going to be somebody that I can just easily win against. And I was just like, he's going to have some sort of response for anything that I say, and it's going to be good, because this dude just like thinks about movies all the time, and he just knows what to say against anything. So I knew he was going to be a challenge, and I just did not expect it to go where I'm 0-2 going into round 3, and I really liked getting that third point, because it seemed unanimous there, which I thought was pretty incredible. And then going into the fourth round, I was like, I don't know how the hell this is going to go. I know Jen Ortega is really popular, so people might just vote for it because of that. But I guess my pitch and everything just wasn't up to snuff. But I was really hoping that we could get into a blind round. But yeah.
Well, here at Battleground, sometimes we like to even out the scales of justice. So how would you like to get revenge on the question writer tonight?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Yeah. For those of you who don't know what the hell's going on, I was told we were all told backstage what Chad's next match is. And it's going to be this idiot right here.
Shit. That's right. Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, I've already played you 3 times now, technically. I won twice and you won once. So it'll be fun.
Yeah, yeah. Let's count those wins here. 1, I was drunk, and 2, you orchestrated the dog pile of shit on me. So again, with 4 other players, this is a 1-on-1.
Yeah.
Chaos. We're gonna chaos. Anyway.
And I think that it's just going to be interesting, because like this match, I actually kind of changed up my prep a little bit. So I wasn't as prepared for a lot of this. A lot of it was actually off the cuff. So I'm interested to see, if I try that style against you, or if I try like another tactic. I don't know. We'll have to see. Depend on the questions.
You know what I do know?
Yeah.
Do you know what I do know?
No.
It's going to be a lot of fucking fun.
Yes, I agree.
And you know what also was a lot of fun? This match right here. So once again, thank you so much, Chad, for being such a great competitor. We're going to put you in the back. Let's wrap this up. Was this a lot of fun? Of course it was. Was it chaotic? Yes. Do both these people probably hate me a little bit? Maybe, but that just makes me smile. On behalf of our wonderful competitors, Aaron getting a win against a tough opponent. Again, thank you both for being great competitors. Thank you to our wonderful judges in Alec, in Alan, and in Caleb. And thank you, the audience, for being such great viewers. If you haven't already, please, please, please ring that notification bell because Aaron loves himself some views. And you're just going to love the kind of chaos that this season is going to bring. So, on behalf of Aaron Connole and his wonderful channel, I have been the Virtuoso Will Cohen. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for watching.